I just want everyone to find a new way of looking at life. I just feel like we're all thirsting for meaning. We need meaning in our lives. We need beauty in our lives. And we don't know how quite to get it, how to remain satisfied, I guess, shall we say. It's almost like our lives are too easy now, you know? It doesn't feel like anything that we do matters. No matter how badly we behave, there's still Whole Foods down the street. We can still get fed. We can still get food. We still have heat. We still have running water. There's almost no consequences to our actions now, and that makes it tough. You know, that makes it very tough. How do we find meaning when there's no impetus, there's no pressure in some ways, there's no survival pressure. Life is still hard. We get bored, we get depressed, we get addicted, we get into trouble, we act out, we have broken relationships, we can't seem to be consistent, we can't seem to lose weight, we can't seem to have control over our lives, you know? Man does not live on bread alone, you know, and that rings so true today. We have as much bread as we need, but still we're not satisfied. How do we deal with being? What are we supposed to be doing with ourselves? Alright, well, enough jibber jabber, as Mr. T likes to say. So, today, we're going to be talking about a really interesting narrative. That's right, it's a narrative. It is a story structure that seems to exist everywhere, in every part of our culture, in every part of our culture, and in every part of our being. And yeah, so we're going to be talking a lot about narratives. And so I'd like to start with my narrative. A few years back, maybe, I don't know, 10, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, I guess, I started selling insurance. And after, 5, 10 years, I started getting pretty good at it. And I got it to the point where it was kind of making money on its own. It was like $150,000 a year, working like 20 hours a week, and no sweat, right? And that was pretty much the dream. That was what I was aiming for the whole time. I just wanted to get a job. I just wanted to survive. And I wanted to show that I could be in society and make it, you know? And I wanted a job that was sort of good enough, that made enough money, that gave me enough time. So didn't want to make like $1 million a year and work 80 hours a week. I was fine making $150,000 a year and working 10 to 20 hours a week. And that was great right up until it started making me sick. I think something about the job, it felt like I was throwing my voice away. And people tell me kind of all the time that I have this nice voice for broadcasting and just a nice voice to listen to. And instead of talking about beautiful things like this, what I was doing was, about 50 times a day, 50 to 100 times a day, dialing, "Hi, this is Stephen Lee. I'm a health insurance broker in Massachusetts. You were looking for health insurance online?" And, or saying like, "Oh, have you ever thought about what would happen if you got injured and weren't able to work for 3 to 6 months? Have you thought about what would happen if that situation were to occur?" And it just started killing me inside. So I just felt like there was some higher purpose, something more that I was supposed to do with my voice. And I think that was what really started to, I don't know, create a lot of stress and anxiety in my body. I started to get insanely nauseous with terrible stomach cramps. So when you're nauseous, like, it feels like the world's about to end. And so accompanied by like staggering stomach cramps, like I'd be lying on the couch just moaning about, and that would last for about 8 hours. And then for the following 8 hours, I would be throwing up horribly and just hugging the toilet until 4 or 5 in the morning. Sweats, shakes, chills, shivers, terror, tears coming down. And then I would wake up the next day and be totally fine. And this would happen about, I don't know, once every couple months, something like that. It was so bad that my sister actually started, when she watched me go through one of these episodes, she started crying. She was like, "That was horrible." And so, yeah, this went on for, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years. Just my body rebelling, and I wasn't sure what was going on. Doctors couldn't figure it out, but I think it was this feeling that I'm wasting my talents. This is a waste. I hate this. It's not challenging. I'm just doing it to survive, to be safe, to be a good person, to follow this narrative of like good grade, good job, good family, retire then die. Like this kind of be safe narrative. Don't ruin your life. Don't starve. Like my mom would say that, and like parents always worry, but and so I sort of had these two stories running through my mind, and yeah, and the first one was that I was throwing my talents away. And then the second one was an image of myself just cowering in a corner, just, oh no, clutching my money, just hoping nothing bad would happen to me. And I felt like I could see the rest of my life, every day, the rest of my life, just the same. Picking up the phone, just reliable money comes in. I mean, it should have made me happy. And that's what made it really hard for me to think about quitting, because I just felt like, oh, I'm being ungrateful. Like, look at all this bread that I have. I have all this, everything I need, Mercedes, 2-bedroom condo right outside of Boston, good friends, all these things, right? But my body was breaking down and it was starting to crush me. And so finally, my sister convinced me to move to New York City. That's where they were. I was in Boston, and just try to figure something else out. So I did, finally. I heeded the call, and I went to New York City at 2020 during the heart of COVID. Like September of 2020, I arrived, and like the heart of 2020, I arrived, and I was probably the only one moving to New York City because it was one of the epicenters of the pandemic. And yeah, it was hard. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I just felt kind of dangling. I didn't know what I wanted. I was so burnt out, so broken mentally just from the sickness and just the stress of the job. And it was so bad that I felt like I knew I couldn't really pursue anything else. Even if I did 1 hour of work a week, it drove me insane. Like I had had enough. So I tried astrology, these different things. I'm a very artsy person. Nothing really stuck. And then one day, I was just bored, and there's nothing to do in New York because everything was shut down from the pandemic. But there was one bar open that was having a singles event of all things, and so I went there just to, not really thinking that I'd meet a girl, but maybe might meet other guys and might make some friends. And I met a guy named Bitcoin Bill. Bitcoin Bill was a very boisterous character. He was immediately noticeable, very flashy. He was wearing a loud shirt. And I kind of was drawn to him, and we chatted a bit, and he was joking at the table, and he kept ordering bottles of wine, and we were having a good night, just joking around, talking. And eventually he takes me aside and he's like, "Hey man, I want to show you something." I'm like, "What?" And he pulls out a couple phones. He's got these really nice cell phones, and there's these numbers on there, and they're like dollars. And it's like $2 million in this phone, $3 million on this one. He's like, "Yeah, I've got like five wallets," he called them, electronic wallets. And I'm like, "What the hell is that?" He's like, "This is Bitcoin." I'm like, "Bitcoin?" He's like, "Yeah, you heard of Bitcoin?" I'm like, "Yeah, I had sort of vaguely." And he's like, "Yeah, I made like $400,000 last night, you know." And I'm like, "Get out of here." But I also thought, like, that seems kind of dangerous. So I sort of just tucked it away. And one thing he said to me before that night ended, he goes, "I have something to tell you." I'm like, "Well, what's that?" He's like, "I'm here to tell you that I'm from the future. And that Bitcoin's going to hit $100,000 next year, so 2021. I'm from the future, I'm telling you." And I just thought that was such a crazy story. And he had a little smile on his face, but he had a certain conviction about it. And so it kind of stayed with me. And it sure beat the hell out of seeing every day for the rest of my life and have it being totally predictable. And that was at the point, too, where I wasn't even sure if I was even able to work again. I was so stressed out. I was having regular panic attacks. Things were hard. And looking at that money and this crazy thing called Bitcoin and his weird dream, I just thought, you know what? Fuck it. I want to go for it. Let's do it. I just wanted to have anything almost that was different than the story that I had been living at the time. So I started buying some Bitcoin and I started reading about it, understanding it, what it was, and I started kind of getting into it. It was sort of this quasi-religious movement. It was about the future and how changing the money is going to save the world, and the old stuff's going to pass away. This is the new wave coming in. This is the future. This is how money will be from now on. And consensus mechanism, all these different things. And one day he takes me aside, he puts his arm around me, and he goes, "You're doing really well. You're doing really well. You've reached level 1, but there's a level 2." I'm like, "Well, what's level 2?" He goes, "Well, level 1 is buy some Bitcoin. Level 2 is put all your money into Bitcoin." And I was starting to get into it, man. I was like, yeah, let's do this. So I started emptying out my retirement accounts. I refied my condo, pouring hundreds of thousands of dollars into Bitcoin. And I was getting to understand it better, sort of what is money, what is a ledger, and number go up, and all these memes. And it was such an exciting thing. I felt like I was part of something. And I felt really smart for some reason, even though none of this is my idea. I was totally under the tutelage of Bitcoin Bill. And eventually he goes, "Hey man," he puts his arm around me again. He's like, "Hey man, you're doing really well." He goes, "You're on level 2, but there's a level 3. And I was like, "Well, what the hell is level 3? I already put everything in." He goes, "Well, now you put everything in. What you can do is take out loans against your Bitcoin and then buy more Bitcoin." And at that point, I was pretty much all in. I was starting to learn about Binance and MetaMask. And for those of you who are familiar with that space, decentralized finance, I took out might have been $1 million in loans without talking to a single person, without even showing my ID. That's decentralized finance on the Ethereum network. Learning about all these different chains. So I'm taking loans out, and now I'm what's called leveraged. And this coin just keeps going up, man. And my average buy-in was maybe $20,000. It went up to $30,000, to $40,000, to $50,000. Elon Musk buys it, goes up to $60,000. We're partying almost every night. We're going out in restaurants, dropping $500, $1,000. It doesn't mean anything anymore. At one point, I made like $800,000 in a single week, which was unreal. I couldn't even understand the amount of money I was making, and it didn't really feel real either because it was all in these coins. And at one point, when it hit $65,000, I called my mom. I remember this. I was like, "Mom, I'm a millionaire. I made it." And there's music in the background, and so yeah, and things were great. And then one day, as you might guess, as these stories often end, Bitcoin crashed. It went from 65,000 down to 28,000. That was in May of 2021, just before I was about to go on a shopping spree with my mom. And it probably took a couple of days for it to drop that quickly, and because of my leverage, the loans that I had taken out, when it hit 28,000, I was wiped out. My entire life just completely gone, except those loans were on the Ethereum network, and that network is kind of primitive, it's slow, and so if everyone uses it at once, it just bogs down, it clogs. And so the network could not liquidate me. It just couldn't process the liquidation request. And by the time it caught up to me, Bitcoin had rebounded from 28,000 up to maybe 35 or 40,000, and I was able to recover some money. I recovered maybe 20 to 30% of my original investment. And so I was devastated. I was in shock. I was on adrenaline. I was like, "Whoa, man, that was crazy." Not even understanding what had just happened. My hours, years, dedication, work, blood, sweat, tears, gone, just wiped out. And I remember that my mom, God bless her, she was trying to cheer me up. I think everyone was traumatized. She's trying to cheer me up. She took me out to see Fast and the Furious Part 9. And I was probably the only one in the theater watching it like this. I was like, "No," every time a car crash happened, I was like, "My money." I could not. I was not in good shape. I was deeply traumatized. I was everything scared me. Everything made me jump. Even to this day, I can't really look at at a graph. It doesn't matter what. It could be a graph of my heartbeat. Like, I can't look at a graph without feeling a little bit pit in my stomach. But yeah. So I lost 2/3 of my entire life, and I did what probably anyone would do is what any smart person would do is try to make it back, man. Just try to make it back. I wasn't willing to let go of that dream yet because, man, we were kings, you know. We were on top of the world. We were smarter than everyone. We were faster than everyone. We were stronger than everyone, more courageous. We saw further than everyone. And we were partying and people were loving us. You know, it was a rock star lifestyle. And I was like, I'm going to make it back. I'm going to make it back. And so I'm all in on every trade, going up and then down and up and then down, and just panic attacks and euphoria, and just, it was just madness. I would make mistake after mistake because I was just traumatized. I would pull these trades without even remembering that I pulled them. Like, it was just this weird knee-jerk reaction. I would hyperventilate. It was this crazy merry-go-round, and it kept going on like that, on and on, my money going up and down and up and down, every time getting a little bit lower, until summer of 2022. Actually, I got scammed out of probably 50% of the little that I had left. I got scammed, and it was at that point that I finally said, yeah, I gotta stop. You know, that's finally what made me hit bottom. I mean, my family had pleaded with me. My best friend was crying on the phone. It's just like, you're going to destroy yourself, you know? So I finally stopped, and it was hard because I didn't know what I wanted, what I could do. I was so mentally destroyed. I didn't know what job I could do. So I thought, oh, maybe I'll wait tables. And going from that Bitcoin high to waiting tables was like, I'm a failure. I'm nothing now. You know, I have no status. I have no money. But I tried to get a job at a restaurant, and they hired me, and they fired me 2 weeks later. And so there I am, 45 years old at the time, college graduate. My dad's a doctor. I had been an upstanding, respectable citizen. Here I am, fired from waiting tables. And my mom heard about this. She got so stressed out, she had a stroke, ended up in the hospital. And that might have been that was kind of a bottom. Like, just feeling like a real piece of shit, essentially, at that point. Like nothing. Like, I was just a wreck. And I remember lying in my bathtub, like lying down in my bathtub with the shower on, not even taking a bath, like a shower, just water raining on my head, just thinking, like, do I want to go on? Do I want to keep going? And I was lying there, just the water just drizzling on me, whatever, and I thought to myself, yeah, I do. There was something inside me that wanted to keep going. I don't know what it was. In fact, there was something inside me that was hopeful. Like, it was weird. Now, part of it too was that even despite all this, I was sort of keenly aware that I was still happier than when I did insurance. So I don't know where that all fit in, but yeah, I was hopeful, and it almost kind of annoyed me because I was like, it'd be so much easier just to give up. Like, why don't I should just do a bunch of heroin or jump out of a window, or I don't know, all these different things. But it's like, no, I'm going to move on. I'm going to keep going. And so I started, I got another job at another restaurant, the one that I'm working at now. And I started listening to Jordan Peterson, and I started to build myself back up. I started cleaning my room, literally cleaning my room, just focusing on these little things. It forced me to re-examine everything. And one thing that was really hard was just that loss of status and that loss of money. I just thought, I'm just going to be a loser the rest of my life. If I can't get my money back with Bitcoin, if I can't get my money back, who am I going to be? What girl's going to want to be with me? How can I start a family? How can I get my respect back? And it was a journey of trying to figure out a new path forward, a new relationship with money even. That money gives you all these things. It gives you this identity. It makes you attractive, right? As a guy especially. And I had to rebuild that. And one story that I found very easy to believe for some reason, I just thought, you know what? I'm not going to believe that my life is ruined, that I'm just a loser now. I'm in a redemption arc. That my story is a story of hope. And I just found myself able to believe it. I don't know why. And I was like, is this stupid to believe? And I did some research or whatever, and I was like, no, this is this is reasonable. Like, so, yeah. So step by step, I started building it back up, and here I am right now, talking about the hero story. So yeah, we heard a lot of different narratives there. Um, we have a lot of narratives in our life, and I think I want to show you this quote. This is Yehezekiel Kaufman. Oh no, this is Abraham Joshua Heschel. Oh, Heschel said this. Okay, that's for some reason I thought it was Kaufman. What we lack is not a will to believe, but a will to wonder. What we lack is not a will to believe, but a will to wonder. You know, we have a lot of beliefs. People believe a lot of things, right? Some of us are religious people. You know, I'm a Christian. I'm a Muslim, and I'm a science guy, and I believe that no one can know. I'm agnostic, and we have so many beliefs. So we don't lack beliefs. I think he's right. But I think what we do lack is a will to wonder. A will to be enraptured by the mystery. A will to wonder maybe how I see the world isn't totally complete, or that there's parts of it that are missing, that there's a mystery beyond it. A will to wonder. Maybe that's a will to question your beliefs, but in the most delightful way. To allow yourself to be romanced by something, you know. That's kind of how I see that quote. I love that quote. And that's what I'm going to try to do today, actually. So yeah, we have a lot of these narratives, right? We got a lot of different stories. And stories are motives. Stories are values. That's the interesting thing. Why do we tell stories? Why are they so interesting? Why do we latch on to stories, right? I had this narrative of that I made it, right? I'm a millionaire. I'm this Bitcoin crypto trader instead of an insurance broker. These are narratives, right? They form our identity. They form a motivation. They form a path to walk on. So stories are containers of value. And the easiest way to see this is through, let's say, the knight in shining armor, right? Everyone knows the story. I think probably everyone everywhere basically understands this story, this particular narrative. There's a knight in shining armor, and he has to face a dragon, and then he kills the dragon and rescues the princess. Now, why do we love this story? Well, you can imagine if you were to sit, let's say you had a child, you sit this kid down, and you go, hey kid, let me tell you how you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be brave. You're supposed to be hardworking, selfless. You're supposed to defend the weak. You're supposed to be generous, kind-hearted, right? And you rattle off this list, and like, what's he gonna do? He's gonna be nodding off, fidgeting around. You can't wait to get out of there. You can try to teach him that way, or you could say, hey kid, let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, in a kingdom far, far away, right? Or a galaxy far, far away, Star Wars, there was a knight in shining armor, and there was a dragon, an evil dragon high up on a mountain, right? You tell the story to the kid, and you tell him about how he slays the dragon, he rescues the princess, he's got this bright sword and this shining armor. And what's he going to do? He's going to find a bucket and put it on his head and grab a stick and pretend it's a sword. He's going to be valiant and rescue the innocent and be valiant and skillful and, all these things. He's going to embody these values. That story is popular, and it stays with us because it contains the values that we champion, right? Who is this knight? He's a knight in shining armor. Why shining? Is it because he just cleaned it? Did he? That's some really shiny armor you got there. No, it's like the shining armor is a symbol of his virtue. You can see it in your head. He's just gallantly standing maybe on a white horse up on a hill with the sun behind him, and he draws his sword. These images are so easy for us to see. They're very natural. Another example is the movie Rocky. And so Rocky is a great example of what narratives do. So narratives are also, they're containers of value, but they're also orienting. It's a contextualizing principle or method or vehicle. So when you think about Rocky, it's like, okay, well, what's the world like? In the world of Rocky, the world is like pretty tough. No one cares about you. No one's going to come to help you. You gotta You gotta survive on your own, and it's a dark place. So that's the world. So, and then who's Rocky? You know, we put ourselves in Rocky's shoes. Like, who are we? Well, we're nobody. We're the underdog. We're just this guy, but we're a fighter, though. And we have a dream. And we work hard to accomplish this dream. And we get up early and we bleed and we endure pain. And then eventually we rise up and we succeed and we achieve a victory, right? That's the story of Rocky. That's why this story is so timeless. That's why we love it. Because so narratives, they do three things. They tell us what the world is. This is what the world is. This is who we are. And this is how we should behave. Right? This is the world. This is who we are. This is what we're supposed to be doing in the world. This is how we should be interacting with the world. That's what a narrative is. That's the Rocky story. That's why it inspires so many people, because it good narratives stay with us. It's like the world does feel like that. It does feel like a hard place, at times, and it does feel like no one cares and that we're counted out, we're underdogs. And then it feels really great. I don't know, it just feels like it calls to us instinctually to fight and to have that dream and then to achieve that dream against all odds. That story, it's like, it's as right as rain, right? It's just natural. It's like the sun comes up and goes down. That story feels so natural. So we have all these different narratives. We also have a lot of modern narratives. So what are the narratives that we have today? I mean, it's pretty much, I think it's kind of what I said, like, get good grades, get a good job, get a family, retire, then die. And that's kind of the main. And then you have all these counter narratives in social media where it's encouraging you not to go down that modern narrative. Like the modern said, this is the world, this is who you are, this is how you should behave. The world is kind of this this normal place. You just pick a career path. Who are you? You're just, I don't know, you're kind of just this lighthearted, simple person that you just follow these steps and then boom, you're happy. That's like this modern narrative. And then these narratives a lot on social media where it's like, no, follow your dreams, like start that blog, start that channel, try to be an actor, write a book, all these things. They're encouraging you to diverge from that modern narrative, because I think there's some collective skepticism that, this simple path probably, I don't know, does it really work? Does it promise? Does it give you what it promises? Does it come through that if you just follow these 5 steps or whatever, you're going to have this deep sense of fulfillment and joy and everything's going to be great? Like, those TV commercials with cereal and mom and good morning, dear, all these commercials. And it's like, those commercials are so like, I don't know, they're so annoying because it's just a completely false narrative. Like, that's not the world. Good morning, Billy. And hi, mom, I love you. It's like, it's too fake. That's not what life is. So, right. So we have these different narratives that tell us the career path, narratives that tell us our identity. This is the world. This is who we are, right? And there's different kinds of narratives. There's a narrative of your job, but then there's like the narrative of your family. Like, you are a son, you're a brother, you're a father, or whatever. These, you could say it's a deeper narrative. And then you keep on going higher up, and then there's like, well, where did you come from? Like, what's your purpose? How are you made? What are you made of? Like, what is inherently given about you? And those are the religious narratives. And the religious narratives are great because they're very unbreakable. Like, if you're a world famous doctor, but suddenly you make a mistake and you got malpractice, whatever, you fall from grace, you get caught in a scandal, it's like that identity is wiped out. Like, you're if that's your entire identity, it's gone. Those narratives can be stressful, but if a religious narrative is very hard to break. If I say, well, you're a son of God, you're saved by Jesus, or whatever it is, or you're a prophet of Allah, or those narratives are very hard to break. They're very attractive narratives because this is the world, this is you. You puts you in a very noble place. But religious narratives, they've kind of have fallen out of style to some degree. There's problems with these narratives. Part of it is that there's too fucking many of them. Like, there's so many narratives, like, and they're all kind of like team oriented. Like you kind of have to put on this jersey, like I'm a Christian and I read this book. Well, I'm a Muslim and I read this book. And it's kind of like everyone has their own little story, and then they usually get into fights, and it just feels like, oh, I don't want to adopt a religious narrative, because then that means I have to like hate an entire group of people, or have to walk around trying to convince people that my narrative is correct. And then the other problem with religious narratives is like you kind of have to take the whole thing like whole hog, and there's a lot of crazy parts of these narratives, sort of fantastical, like resurrections, burning bushes, talking angels, demons, you name it. There's all 8 gods with 8 arms on it. Just Red Sea parting, all these different things that it's sort of hard for us as modern people to step into. It's like that doesn't make any sense. I don't get it. So they're sort of, these religious narratives feel unattractive, and they also feel a little bit too far-fetched. So what do we do now? Well, what if I told you that there is a narrative that we all kind of agree on, and a narrative that we already live by, actually, a narrative that we already believe in fact, and not just, well, especially us here in the United States, in the modern world, in the West, actually in the East too, but every culture seeks to embody this narrative. And not just every culture today, but every culture since the beginning of civilization, and probably way before, probably hundreds of thousands of years, we've been embodying, celebrating, meditating, obsessing over, telling each other this narrative over and over again. This is the hero story. And so you're saying, okay, Steve, well, what's this hero narrative? I mean, you're saying everyone knows it. Well, what is it? Well, funny you should ask. You already know it. Have you seen Harry Potter? That movie? Have you watched Star Wars? How about Dune? Have you watched Dune? Certainly you've watched Dune. It's made like $500 million. Or is it $500 million? Yeah, I think $500 million, something like that. This story is already embedded in you. Do you watch sports? What do you think sports is? That's a hero reenactment. Why do we like watching a guy bounce a ball around? I mean, seriously, think about that. Why do we do that? It's reenacting a narrative that we believe in instinctively. This is the hero story. It's this match. Finally, we have this narrative that crosses cultures, crosses time periods. So, let's jump into it. What the hell is this? What am I talking about? What is this crazy narrative? All right. So, we have all these different items here, right? And why don't we just go through it? Let's talk about Dune. Guys, what is the plot of Dune? Hang on here. What is the plot of Dune, right? Paul Atreides, right? High lineage. Son of a duke. Look at this kid. Wet behind the ears. I almost want to pinch his cheeks, It's fresh out of the oven, I guess, kind of, whatever. And seems like a nice kid. Seems to be taken to he's got all these tutors, weapon masters, all his training. Seems to be going pretty well. Seems pretty talented. But also, there's this Bene Gesserit, right? These crazy psychic witches. And they're like, whoa, there's something special about this kid. He keeps having these crazy dreams. And they test him with Jom Gabar or something like that. And he passes it in a way that no one else has before. So he's incredibly talented. So he's high lineage. He's got this talent. Like, he seems skilled, right? And that all seems to imply a destiny. So high lineage talent implies some kind of destiny. Something with this Bene Gesserit, something with his ability to, wield a sword or wield a blade and a gun, and just to be strong in combat, all these different things. And his father takes him aside. He's got this great mentor, his dad, who's a great guy, Duke Leto. And Leto is kind of his world. He's the one that contextualizes the world for Paul. He's like, hey, Paul, this is the world. This is who you are. This is how you should move about, So he's the one that takes him through his paces. This is the next lesson you need to learn. This is what you need to do next. He's a very comforting presence for Paul. And Leto says, hey, one day you're going to be Duke. And Paul says, Well, what if I don't want to be Duke? And what if I don't like any of these weird witches, you know? Even though my mom wants me to do this stuff. What if I'm not good enough? What if I fail? Right? This reluctance. This is another hallmark of the hero story, reluctance. He's not so sure he wants this destiny. He's not so sure he can do it. He's a little bit afraid. He's not sure of himself. And so, you know, they kind of go back and forth, and then the Duke in this wonderful moment says, well, you know, no matter what happens, you'll always be my son. And that's kind of this nice moment. So, what happens? Well, they get called to this desert planet. You know the story. And there's this conspiracy, right? That the Harkonnens and the Emperor are afraid of House Atreides. They want to destroy them. And guess what they do? They send all these armies in, and they blast them. You know, they destroy all their armies. They burn everything. And the House Atreides falls. And Paul has to go into hiding. And so what happens, this is called a baptism moment. This is a realization, right? So you have this destiny, his mentor, there's reluctance, I'm not sure, and then boom, baptism. You can call it a point of no return. This is where Paul has to flee into the wilderness. And then he's forced to look within himself and say, do I want this destiny? And it's kind of like, well, shit, there's really nothing else now. It's like either follow the destiny or I don't even know what, just wander off into the desert and die. And so he has to leave home. He decides to leave. He leaves behind everything that's familiar to him, including his father. His father gets abducted, kidnapped, and then murdered. And so now his mentor, his entire world, everything that he knows, especially his dad, right? Gone. He's forced within himself now. He has to face his inner darkness. He has to forge his own path, overcome his own challenges. And so he joins the Fremen, and he encounters a number of challenges and difficulties and tests, and he passes them. And so he discovers himself, who he is. He confronts his own fears, and he begins to embrace his destiny. Even if maybe a little bit cynically at first, he's like, no, I will step into this. This is how I recover the House Atreides, essentially. This is how I recover the name, become who I am. And so he reemerges with a really cute girl here, Chani. Who wouldn't want Zendaya in your corner, right? He reemerges, and he's no longer the young kid that we saw in the beginning of the movie. Now look at him. He's powerful. He knows who he is. He stepped into his destiny. And he leads the Fremen armies against the Harkonnens, and he destroys them. He rides the worms in, and he burns everyone up. And he faces the Baron, who he learns is his illegitimate grandfather. Dun, dun, dun. So he's related to the enemy. This is the theme. Related to the enemy. And, oh yeah, and you could say he had like this death and then resurrection, right? And then he's this new person. He leads his armies. And he kills the Baron. So, right, he has his resurrection here, right? So he emerges and he saves his people. Now he is Paul, what did they call him? The shit, I forgot. Basically, he's like Messiah. He's like the fulfillment of prophecy. The Kwisatz Haderach, right? Yeah, Kwisatz Haderach, and that's a story for another time. But yeah, so this is the transformation. This is the hero story right here. And we could even do it again. It's actually pretty easy. Save that for last. We can go through it quickly. Yeah, Star Wars, this is really easy. Luke Skywalker, boom. He's got the name Skywalker, implies a high lineage. He has some kind of talent about him that old Ben Kenobi seems to see, and that implies a destiny, which he is completely... Look at this kid. This dude doesn't know his ass from his elbow, man. He hasn't left the farm. All he knows is moisture farming. That's what he's on. He's on a moisture farm. We're living with his aunt and uncle. He's he's a young country boy. And then, beautiful princess shows up, right, in a hologram, which happens to be his sister, which is kind of weird, maybe Oedipal in some way. And she needs help, and she asks for Obi-Wan. Who's that? Is it old Ben? Old Ben, what's up with this? Oh my god, that's the princess. Luke, you gotta come with me. I don't know about that, right? This is Ben, the mentor, who kind of like, who's sort of part of his life. Obviously, Luke trusts him. But Luke's like, I gotta be on the farm. We got a lot of moisture to farm, dude. And I gotta take care of my aunt and uncle. And Old Ben's like, all right, whatever. Boom, what happens? Baptism. The Empire comes down, puts the torch on his family, flamethrowers this, bombs, whatever, blows up his house and stuff, and kills his aunt and uncle. And now he's like, well, shit, now I have really nothing to do here. I can't, what am I going to do here? I can stay here and just whatever, or I can take this high adventure. He takes the hero's path, has all these different adventures, meets some new friends, eventually meets the princess whom he kisses. Again, kind of weird, but that's another story for another time. And he has a really nice victory, of course, in Star Wars. But along the way, Obi-Wan faces Darth Vader, and to give them time to get away, Obi-Wan sacrifices himself, and so he dies. So Obi-Wan dies, that's the mentor death. And Luke enters into this inner darkness, this death part. So he faces his father, or I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said father, Darth Vader, too soon, gets his hand cut off, gets defeated. He realizes he's not ready, he's scared, he hides. And he goes to Tatooine, this swamp planet, which is very symbolic of death. He disappears into darkness, kind of like death. And there he faces his inner darkness. He must do or do not. There is no try. And, Yoda's got this new mentor here who teaches him the ways of the Force, and he begins to realize, oh, this is my destiny. This is who I am. Of course, we know that he's related to the enemy. Darth Vader's his father. Boom, look at this guy. Look at this handsome dude. He emerges back on the scene. He's resurrected now. It's a death. He's reborn. This is not the same kid on the moisture farm, right? Look at his eyes. Look at this dude. He's a killer now. He's ready to kick ass and take names kind of thing. So Luke reemerges. Now he's a true Jedi, and he's ready to save his people. Not only does he save his people, but he saves his father. He finds the goodness in his father. His father repents at the very last and then dies right after killing the Emperor. He picks up the Emperor, throws him down in this crazy well. He burns up. And so he saves his people. And, right, he's related to the enemy, right? He's got this inner darkness. There's some kind of relation to darkness. He's like a redemption of that. And then they party with Lando Calrissian, a.k.a. Billy D. Williams, and they drink a bunch of Colt 45. So there you go. So here's a question I have for you, my friends. Why do we tell this story? What is it about this story that we love? Why do we obsess over it, right? We have these movies. We'll get into sports in a second, but we have this narrative that we love, and it's totally universal. No one is going to argue about this. Like, if I tell you a story about a guy who saves his family, everyone's going to be like, yeah, of course. Or he saves his tribe or saves his nation. One man, he leads the people, right? That is a universal story. So what does it mean? The hero story is our story. See, The Matrix is similar. Godfather is kind of an anti-hero story. But what about an actual story? My story. Here you go. And you can put yourself into this too. I have a high lineage, right? We're from a long line of cells bumping into cells, essentially, like just generations, hundreds of thousands of years of organisms mating and reproducing and surviving and producing and surviving. And it's like, and it all comes down to you. You are the result of this long line, this miraculous line of descendants, essentially. And so, yeah, you kind of have a high lineage. I mean, my parents were pretty smart. Like, they graduated very high in their class, and they came from Korea, and they made it across the ocean and made a life here, which is amazing. So, yeah, some kind of a high lineage, maybe. Definitely have some talents, as I said. Like, I have this voice, and I just have this need to broadcast. I don't know what it is, just to be in front of the camera, guys. And so I have this talent, and it seems to imply a destiny, right? That my parents came all the way over here, that they worked hard to give me this life, and I have these talents inside me, but it's like, I'm not so sure about YouTube and broadcasting. It seems kind of iffy, and what if I hate it, and what if I can't follow through on it, and so I'm just not sure, right? And so what happened? I had a baptism. My body started giving out on me. My health deteriorates. That was kind of a first baptism. It's like, well, what do I do now? Like, I can't stay here. I'm gonna die. Like, so then I go to New York, meet Bitcoin Bill. In some ways, I kind of sidestep the whole hero story. I just get Bitcoin. I don't have to grow or do anything scary or work hard, or I just buy Bitcoin and then what happens? I get destroyed. All my money gets gets vaporized essentially, and that's kind of the big baptism, the realization like now I have to leave everything familiar, right? And I enter in kind of like this death. And my dad even kind of had his own problems, went through divorce and he lost money too, and it was a very tough time. Tough to think that maybe I'm just following in his footsteps, and that was a narrative I was really depressed about. So I had to face a lot of my inner darkness. I can see why people kill themselves when they lose their money. I totally get it. I get it, man. It just, I guess it just wasn't in the cards. I had to face that demon. That was a tough one. I had to make a call to the IRS. That was a shitty call, man. That was one of the scariest things. They're actually really nice. One of the scariest things I had to do was call the IRS because I withdrew all these retirement accounts and I had all this huge tax liability. But anyways, yeah, so I had to face all these demons and I had to find myself, embrace this destiny. It's like, shit, I might as well just do the channel now. Like, what the hell is going to happen to me at this point? It's like, it's kind of like, yeah, the baptism kind of gives you courage. It's like, there's nothing else to turn back to now. So I'm starting to reemerge, right? Maybe this is my resurrection moment. Can I save my people? Can I support myself with my voice, with my creativity, with my imagination? Can I entertain people? Will you allow me? Will the world allow me to save it, I guess you could say. And yeah, so we'll see. This is where we're at in the story. Will I resurrect, right? So yeah. It's just amazing how closely it maps on to my own story. So yeah, this is this hero's narrative. And there's so much more to this, right, that we're going to get into, but that's kind of the basic outline. But these narratives are so powerful. And I guess I kind of want to show you like what happens when we can embrace a narrative that lives in us, right? We know we found the right narrative when great narratives unify us. They harmonize us. They harmonize the world. They help us to fit into, because if we can just get what is the world, right? This is the world, this is us in the world. If we can just get the world right and we can get us right, then that harmony comes through. And when we see that harmony happen, we experience deep, deep joy and excitement and celebration and gratitude. And if you don't believe me, watch this. So here we go.
8 seconds to go. There's the switch. They're trapping him. Naper's in trouble with 5 seconds to go. Lost the dribble. Found it again.
Right? That's the hero. Boom. Saves the people, right? Look at that. This is a reenactment. Look at them cheering. When do you ever see people that fucking happy? Never. Here's another one. Here's the hero. Fighting against the odds. Overcoming his... Oh. At the very last moment, right? Bedlam. Pandemonium breaks out. People freaking out. People freaking out. Why are they doing that? Why are they that happy? It's because they're watching the narrative play out in front of their very eyes. The hero, right? He encounters the trouble. He encounters adversity. And then he saves the people. Sports is a symbolic reenactment of the narratives that we hold dear. You don't believe me? I mean, why are they called sports heroes? Why do kids have idols? Sports idols. Why do kids look up to Shaquille O'Neal? What's he done, man? What has Shaquille done? All he done is dribbled a stupid ball and was a little fat and just dunked it in the net even though it was only 2 inches above his head. And it's because he's an embodiment of the values that we champion. Kobe Bryant's a really good example. What is he? He's hardworking. He's brave. He's got ice in his veins, right? He has the mental strength to save us, to hit that buzzer beater. He's skilled. He happens to be eloquent. Good-looking guy. He's tall. He's strong. Right? That's why kids have these heroes, and that's why it's so disappointing when these sports heroes have moral failings, like they end up beating their wives or cheating on their wives or taking steroids, gambling on their own team, all these different things. It's really disheartening because they were embodying this ideal. I mean, it's like I can watch one of my favorite sports heroes is Rafael Nadal, tennis player, and I could watch him play tennis, and then that would make me work harder at my job. Like, how does that even transfer? It's like I'm watching him live out this narrative, and that inspires me to take that narrative and put it into my own story. This is the world. This is you. This is you in the world, right? I'm Nadal. I'm fighting for every point. I've worked hard. I'm strong. I can persist. I can overcome the odds, right? The world is a hard place. There's an adversary. I have to fight. You have to fight when you're in the world. That's what you're supposed to do. That's the power of these narratives. That is the power of these narratives. And basically, we each have this narrative inside of us. If you watch sports or movies or, this narrative lives inside of you. And I think it's a bit different than the modern narrative that we're given. That we're kind of simple and we just have to have this nice life and do these nice little things and then die and then that's great. Everyone's happy. So I want to give Steve Jobs the restatement of the hero's narrative in today's language. So
when you grow up, you tend to get told that the world is the way it is and your life is just to live your life inside the world, try not to bash into the walls too much, try to have a nice family life, have fun, save a little money. But life, that's a very limited life. Life can be much broader once you discover one simple fact, and that is everything around you that you call life was made up by people that were no smarter than you. And you can change it. You can influence it. You can build your own things that other people can use. And the minute that you understand that you can poke life and actually something will, if you push in, something will pop out the other side, that you can change it, you can mold it. That's maybe the most important thing, is to shake off this erroneous notion that life is there and you're just going to live in it, versus embrace it, change it, improve it, make your mark upon it. I think that's very important. And however you learn that, once you learn it, you'll want to change life and make it better, because it's kind of messed up in a lot of ways. Once you learn that, you'll never be the same again.
Isn't that great? Don't you love how he just spelled that out? You go back to our little chart here. That once you learn that the world was built by people no smarter than you, what's he talking about? This is the reluctance, right? I can't do it. I'm not that smart. I'm not good enough to do that. There's other people that are way smarter than me, right? He's saying no. He's trying to get you to overcome your reluctance, your uncertainty. And I also love how he's like, you're supposed to just make some money, save some money, have fun, don't cause too much trouble, have a family, and he's saying that's a limited narrative. He has a great way of reframing it, and then once you poke life and something comes out the other side, and he's trying to say like you can save your people. He's trying to get you to overcome your reluctance, your natural reluctance as the hero, and to step into the special world, step into the unknown. That's what this hero story is all about. Is stepping into the unknown, the uncertainty, and taking that chance. And I also, I don't know, so much about that restatement is so great. And he's saying I don't know if he knows, but the world's a pretty messed up place. And I just believe that so strongly. Like, guys, I don't think I'm being too controversial by saying we need more heroes. Like, we need more heroes. Like, we need people to step up. There's a very particular problem that you were made for. Just that crazy, smorgasbord, Rubik's Cube of welts and knobs and nooks and crannies that is your soul. It sees the world in a way that no one else does. It will solve a problem in a way that no one else can. I mean, just uniquely, because there's no one like you, right? There's no one like me. It's just like you were made for something very special. I think that's part of what the hero's narrative says. That the world is in trouble. This is the world, it's in trouble. It's full of dragons and darkness and danger and sadness and sorrow. This is the world. And who are we? We're the hero, but we're reluctant, we're not sure, we're afraid. And who are we in the world? The hero steps forward, faces that demon, risks his life, the very dangerous journey. I just, if you don't rise up, then there's a part of that world that we're never going to solve. I just believe that. I mean, you take this for example, like no one's going to say this in exactly the way that I'm going to say it. And we need as many voices as possible. Like, there's Jordan Peterson, whom I love, but some people love, who's that? David Goggins, or maybe they like Barack Obama. I don't know, just whatever. These different people that you might look up to. Everyone says it in their own way, and we all plug in a different way. It's like, we need heroes. We need people to step out into the unknown, and we'll talk more about what that could look like. And we're going to talk about the physiology of this story. I'm going to try to layer this in to the predominant religion of today, which is science. What does science say about this? What are the stories that science tells, and does it line up with this hero story? And of course, I think it matches up perfectly. Our physiology was designed to be optimized by the hero story. So, yeah, thanks for coming. That's the end of part 1. This is a 4-part lecture, and I hope you join for the rest of it. I hope you found it interesting and moving. It's something that has saved my life, and that I apply to my life all the time. The higher your narrative, the higher your mode of being. Narratives bring meaning. If you suffer from meaning, a lack of meaning in your life, it's because you haven't found a deep enough narrative. And here's one that's universal. Here's your grand narrative, So I hope if you feel challenged, I hope you have a will to wonder. I hope I've inspired you in some way. But yeah, so join me for the next one. Part 2 is coming up. All right.